This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Glatstein, we have a very interesting topic this morning. After all, this Shabbos, it's the earliest Shabbos of this season, and so the Gemara in the earliest Shabbos so far of the season, and the Gemara in an unrelated issue discusses something that's very interesting. The Gemara wants to know about one's fire. We know that a person is obligated not only for the damage that he causes, but he's also obligated for the damage that his animal causes, or that his pit causes. He's also obligated, he's also chayev, a pit. But a person is also obligated for his fire. Someone lights a fire, and the fire spreads. So the person is obligated for the damage that comes as a result of the fire that he lit. And the Gemara wants to know exactly why is somebody responsible for the fire that he lit. And we have Machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish in the Gemara Baba Kama Daf Chaf Beis. The Gemara says like this: Itmar. We learned Rabbi Yochanan says Ishai, a person's fire mishum chitzav. It's because of his arrow. In other words, like this: the same way, if you were to take an arrow, pull it back, rear back, and let it go. So then, let's say the arrow goes, it goes through someone's clothesline. The guy has 10 shirts, 10 Brooks Brothers shirts, and it goes through one, his Shabbos shirt, his weekday shirt, his Yom Tov shirt. It destroys all 10 of his shirts. That's $1,000 of damage. Yeah. Then the arrow continues to go. It breaks through about 5 windows. It breaks down a car. You're responsible. So we take the guy to court. You say, you're obligated for what you damaged. He said, what did I do? So I wasn't there. I didn't even see what happened. He said, what do you mean? It was your kayach. It was your arrow. Your arrow did the damage. The same thing with fire. If a person lit a fire and the fire spread, that is tantamount to his arrow. Okay? That is the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish Amar, Reish Lakish says, Isho mishum mamaynai. Your fire is your money. What does that mean? Rashi explains, the same way if your ox damages, you're chayev because you own your ox. The same way if your pit damages, you're chayev because you own your pit. So too, if your fire damages, the fire is something that you own, you're responsible for what it goes out and does. Okay, now the Gemara wants to know like this. For Reish Lakish, my time alayamar Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish, why does he not hold like Rabbi Yochanan? Amar Lecha, Reish Lakish will say, I'll tell you why I hold that a fire is not like your arrow. Chitzav mi koichai ka'azli. Your arrow is a result of your koyach. Yeah? When an arrow travels, it's the energy that you put into the arrow, that is what's causing the damage. But fire goes on its own. Or the wind carries it. It's not your kayach. Halami kayach azal. The fire does not go because of your kayach. By an arrow, you put in a certain latent energy, and that energy that later comes to fruition is the energy you put into it. Fire, you lit the fire. The fact that a wind came along, that's not your kayach, and therefore Reish Lakish says, I do not feel that fire is like your arrow. Now, why does Rabbi Yochanan not say that your fire is your money? Rabbi Yochanan, my time alone with Reish Lakish. Why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan hold like Reish Lakish? Amar Lacha. Rabbi Yochanan will say, Mamayna ispe mamasha. Something you own has substance. You own an ox? That's a substantive matter. You own a pit? That is a matter of substance. A fire is not an item of substance. You can't own a fire. It's not something that ownership is possible. Halas l'bei mamasha. Fire does not have substance.
What will be the difference if I say b'moinai or b'tzai? What will come out? Where will there be a difference?
Well, if it's your money, question maybe do you pay full damages? Do you pay half damages? If it's your kayach, you pay full damages. There are other nafkaminas. There are other nafkaminas. I'll tell you one major nafkamina. Yeah.
Why would you only pay half damage?
If it's like your shar?
Yeah, why would you only pay half?
Or the Gemara gives other nafkaminas. The Gemara gives other nafkaminas.
You did the damage. Why would I only pay half?
Because for money, you don't always pay full damages right away. Yeah, what's the question? Right?
What are you setting up as your heading here? What's the
We didn't get there yet. You'll see. Okay. So how do we paskin? We paskin like Rabbi Yochanan, Isha Misham Chitzav. Your fire is like your arrow. I'll tell you very pashut nafkamina, Zoe. If somebody if someone lights a fire and it kills someone, so if you're the one who damaged, you're a murderer. If it's just your money that damaged, you're not a murderer. You're not a Reitzach. There are many nafkaminas. Okay? Between Isha Misham Chitzav, Isha Misham Amayne. Comes along the Nemukei Yosef. You ready for this? And this is where we get into things. Nemukei Yosef is one of the classic Rishonim, one of the commentaries on the Rif. Nemukei Yosef asks like this: we paskin Isha Misham Chitzav, which means, well, think about that for a minute. That my fire is like my arrow, which means the same way as an arrow travels. Why am I responsible? Because it's me. Right? Matt, what's the halacha? What would you say? A guy shot an arrow, and then he went to sleep. And an hour later, after he's sleeping, the arrow hit something and damaged it. Well, the guy's chayiv. Why? But he's sleeping. No, every moment the arrow is moving, he's doing it. So too, every moment the fire burns, he's doing it. Listen to this kasha.
I want to know what kind of...
Ask the Nemukei Yosef, how are you allowed to light Ner Shabbos? Why? Because if Isha Misham Chitzav, if your fire is your arrow, that means every moment the fire is burning, you're actively causing it. So if that's the case, every moment that your Friday night candles are burning, you are actively being Mechalo Shabbos. So you say, what do you mean? I did it before. No, if you did it before, why are you responsible for damages that happen later? Because the damages that happen later, we consider it that you're doing. So too, when the fire is burning, we should consider that you're doing it.
Why do you want to say you're doing it? Why don't you say you caused it?
What?
Instead of saying you're doing it, say you caused it.
Because you're not chayiv for grama b'nizaken. It's not you caused it. If it was just a cause, you'd be pater.
Why? Yeah. Caused the fire that damaged somebody's
Because when it comes to grama b'nizaken pater. You're not chayiv for grama by damages. The only time you're chayiv for damages is active damaging.
Fire is always active, right? It can be a grama for fire.
No, is it? In contract law, there's a concept called force majeure.
Not in halacha.
I think there is, because it recognizes if you lit a fire and you took every precaution and you have every reason to think it's not a problem, all of a sudden, once in 100-year hurricane comes along, it takes your fire and blows it somewhere else. It's unreasonable to think that you should be responsible because you did what every normal person is supposed to do. And what happened was clearly beyond your control. You had no reason to predict or think that this would happen. As a result, your culpability should be, in that case, that I say...
we're not talking about Ruach She'ena Metzuya here. We're talking about Ruach Metzuya. We're talking about Ruach Metzuya, a regular wind. Ruach She'ena Metzuya may not be responsible.
So we're talking in a case where...
I want to know if somebody...
negligent, then it's Shiur here, because if it's a Ruach Metzura, and then you didn't take the necessary precautions, if it happens on a regular basis, you didn't take...
No, but this happened one time. Someone lit a fire spread it. The question is, why are you responsible? Rabbi Yochanan says, you know why you're responsible? Because we consider it as if you actively did it. So the question is, if it's considered like when a fire is spreading, you are actively causing it to spread, despite the fact that your Maisa has already been removed and ended, right? Imagine a guy...
You created what caused the damage was created by you.
No, but one second. There are two. We have to look at what the Gemara says. The Gemara says there are two understandings why you're chayav by a fire. Reish Lakish says it's my money. I'm obligated for whatever my money does. Rabbi Yochanan says it's my arrow. My arrow means it's my act. Whatever continues, right? The same way with an arrow. Why am I responsible for my arrow? Because even though the arrow is a mile away from me, whatever that arrow does, we consider, I'm doing it now.
If it's reasonable to expect that what your arrow did would normally have happened, if it's unreasonable to expect that what your arrow did,
well, it doesn't matter.
Be different.
No, let's, again, if according to Rabbi Yochanan, so try to understand what the Gemara is saying. According to Rabbi Yochanan, if you're the same way, if your arrow goes and does damage, that arrow is considered your act. Your fire is considered, even though you're not there anymore. You're not standing there holding the wick to the fire.
You took the reasonable.
But no. What has nothing to do with reasonable? Reasonable is not a factor. Again, you have to get the lumdus of the Gemara. Gentlemen, again, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if you, the same way everybody understands, if you shoot an arrow, again, drop that's going to confuse it. If you shoot an arrow, why, if that arrow hits someone, are you chayev? Not because you should have, or nothing to do with should have. It's because that arrow, when it hits the guy, it's like you have actively taken a knife and stuck it into the guy's heart. In other words, if you shoot an arrow at someone and you kill him, why are you chayev? Not because you should have known, nothing to do with that. It's because even though the arrow is not connected to your hand right now, but since you put in the koyach that allowed the arrow to travel, it's like your hand has extended and stuck the arrow into the person. So too with the fire, even though, right, I lit the fire Erev Shabbos. The fire is burning on Shabbos. So I'm not burning it on Shabbos, but it's like my long hand continues to burn it and burn it and burn it actively on Shabbos. Look at the Nimukei Yosef.
Can't you say that your long hand actively is cooking what you set up on a stove before Shabbos, and you're really cooking?
That's a kasha. Yeah, that's what we're asking. Exactly. Look, he says like this. The first question is...
I didn't know I was...
Look, the first question is the kasha lach. Look in the Nimukei Yosef. Isho mishum chitzav ki'ilu biyadav heviro. As if you're burning it with your hand. In other words, you started a fire. Let's say a person lit his table on fire. That table caught on to the next table, caught on to the next table, and eventually damaged his friend's house. So why am I chayev? It's because even though I'm not actively burning down his house, it's like I am. So I asked the Nimukei Yosef, if you're going to ask, Im kain heichi sharinan im chashecha lehadlik as haneros. How is it permitted to light the Shabbos candles? And its lighting continues to burn on Shabbos. Or by karbanos, you light the fire before Shabbos and it continues to burn on Shabbos. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, harehu keilu hevirahu ba'atzon b'Shabbos. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it should be like you are actively burning the fire on Shabbos. And the Nimukei Yosef says further, it's even worse. Because when you light your table, you didn't have in mind that your house should catch on and then spread to your friend's house. You didn't even have that in mind. You didn't even know it would happen. Nevertheless, you're responsible because since this original fire had that ability to spread, it's like you're doing it every moment. Certainly when you light the Friday night candles, where you want it to burn on Shabbos, so when you're lighting it Friday night, it should be considered like every moment it's burning, you're actively lighting it. So maybe you'll say it's not a question. Ultimately, the Nimukei Yosef is going to say that the reason why, listen to this, but we're not going to deal with the Nimukei Yosef's answer. The Nimukei Yosef ultimately is going to answer like this. And that is, when we say Isho Misham Chitzav, it's not that every moment the fire burns, we say it's like you're actively burning it right now, but rather it's all contained in the original act that happened from the beginning. So in other words, when you light the Friday night candles, however long this candle is going to burn, you're right, we considered it like you actively are lighting it, but at the time you lit it. But again, we're not going to deal with the Nimukei Yosef's answer right now. Let's just get the question. The question is very simple. If a person's fire is like his arrow, which means every moment the fire burns, it's like you're actively burning it, how can you light the Shabbos candles? Okay, that's the question. And you can say, how could you have any fire burn on Shabbos? Right? The reason why he asked on the Shabbos candles is because the Shabbos candles is a mitzvah. We're commanded to burn it. We're commanded to light it. We have to light it. Yeah.
And how could you make it tonight if your wife lights the Shabbos candles, and you go to shul with the car, you are not accepting her lighting the candles. It's a tanai you're making. So how can you make this tonight?
Actually, you don't have to make it tonight. When a woman is Makabel Shabbos, it's got nothing to do with you. She's not Makabel Shabbos for you. Now there's a question. Let's say you're Makabel Shabbos. Let's say you're making an early Shabbos. Is your Kabbalah Shabbos, does that make your wife have to accept Shabbos? That's a discussion. But when your wife lights Shabbos candles, it's not binding on the husband. Okay? Now, to answer this question of the Nemukei Yosef, we're going to get involved in a very interesting aspect of the machshava of how we understand Menuchas Shabbos, the rest of Shabbos. And that is like this. We have a very interesting question, and we have a concept in halacha that Amira La'akum is Asr. Now, Amira La'akum is it an Isser D'Oraisa or an Isser D'Rabbanan? It's Isser D'Rabbanan. Why is it not an Isser D'Oraisa? Because it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that you're not allowed to tell a guy to do malacha. I'll suggest, it does say in the Torah you're not allowed to tell a guy to do malacha. Because we know, Shliach Shal Adam, so if you're asking a guy to turn on the light for Shabbos, so you say, but a guy can't be a shliach, ain't shliach, right? He's not a halachic shliach, ain't shlichus ha'akam. But Rashi's shita in Shas is that even though a guy can't be a shliach, l'chumra, he is a shliach.
Isn't Eliezer a shliach?
We had a share on that, like 4 years ago, but. Rabbi say, so listen to the following question. The Rashi's shita in Shas is yeshlichos la'akum l'chumra. What does that mean, l'chumra? That means if you tell a guy to do an isser for you, according to Rashi, you're going to get the isser. You can't tell a guy to marry a woman off for you. You can't tell a guy to divorce your wife for you. In general, ain't shlichos la'akum, but yesh shlichos la'akum l'chumra. Midaraisa. That's the shita of Rashi. Yesh shlichos la'akum l'chumra. If that is the case, then why did the Rabbanan have to aser amir la'akum midrabanan? It's aser anyway midaraisa because yesh shlichos la'akum l'chumra.
They don't hold that way.
Who's they?
The Rabbanan. That made this, that said...
They don't hold like Rashi? Yeah. Well, that's a big problem with Rashi. If the Nevi'im, who made up, the Yisurim of Amir La'akum, don't hold like him.
Who came first, the Amoraim or Rashi?
So
Rashi?
How's Rashi going to explain that? No, the question is Kasha on Rashi. How's Rashi going to explain that? Yeah? So this question is raised by the Shalas Teshuvas Pnei Yeshua. Now, this is not the Pnei Yeshua in Shas. This is a Shas Teshuvas Pnei Yeshua. The grandfather of Pnei Yeshua, he authored the Maginei Shlomo. Okay, now again, let's get the question very clearly. According to the Shita of Rashi, that a guy could be a Shliach L'chumra, then why do the Chachamim need to aser Amir La'akum Midrabanan? It's aser anyway, Midairaisa out Shlichas. You get the kasha?
Okay.
But Rashi holds in all cases l'chumra?
Yeah. L'chumra, a guy could be a shliach.
Right.
That's Rashi's shita. So the question is, so Amir L'Akum should then be an Isur D'Oraisa. Okay? This is the question.
Amir L'Akum is not a chumra.
That's what we're asking. According to Rashi, it shouldn't be an Isur D'Rabbanan. It should be much worse. And yet we know...
So Rashi departed and said it's a chumra, but in this case maybe it doesn't hold.
No. It's clear in the Gemara, Amir L'Akum is an Isur D'Rabbanan. We're asking that doesn't work out with Rashi's shita, right? It's granted. It's granted Amir L'Akum. It's granted Amir L'Akum is an Isur D'Rabbanan. So this is the question of the Shalas Teshuvas Pnei Yeshua. Okay, take a look. The Agavorche... He says, Agavorcha, I'm going to tell you. Masha hikshesi nishmaitin dehapoilim.
Yes.
That which you could ask from the Gemara, Masech in Parak HaPoilim, on the Poiskim. Zeli yoser michav shana. Says the Shalas Teshuvas Pnei Yeshua, I have this question for longer than... I have this question for longer than 20 years. Okay? Dilamanda Amar... So now the question is, okay, but ain't shliach ledvar avera? right? You'll say, good, yesh shlichus ha'akam l'chumra, but ain't shliach l'dvar avera. L'man da'amar, according to the man da'amar, this is Ravina, in the Parakama d'Ba Metzia. D'chi amrinon ain't shliach l'dvar avera. When do we say ain't shliach l'dvar avera? Heicha de shliach bar chiyuvahu. There's a concept, ain't shliach l'dvar avera.
Take it outside.
Ein shliach l'dvar avera, ein shliach, right? In general we say ein shliach l'dvar avera, right? Which means like this: if I say to somebody, "Go do me a favor, go eat some chazer for me," be my shliach to do an avera. You can't be my shliach to do an avera. Why not? Ein shliach l'dvar avera. What are you listening to me? Divrei harav, divrei hatalmid, divrei mi shaymin. Who are you going to listen to? Me or Hashem? So therefore, normally we would say ein shliach l'dvar avera, and in that case, if you tell a guy to do a malacha, of course he's not a shliach, ein shliach l'dvar avera. But the Gemara says if the shliach himself is not obligated in that thing which you're commanding him, right? If he's not a bar chiyuva, then we say yesh shliach l'dvar avera, right? Heicha de shliach bar chiyuvahu. This din that ein shliach l'dvar avera is only if the shliach is obligated in that which you're commanding him. Aval heicha de shliach la bar chiyuva. If the shliach is not a bar chiyuva, mechayev ha-mishalech, then the one who sends him is chayev. Okay.
How does this whole discussion fall in with Rashi?
One second, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. So, right now, if you send somebody to do something to you who's not a bar chiyuva, the mishaleach will be chayev. Imkain, if that's the case. My kami baile, what's the Gemara asking you? In Parsha Payalim, Ishari loymar lagoy, chasoin parasi. The Gemara has a shaila in Bava Metzia. Are you allowed to tell a guy to muzzle your animal? Of course not. But hagoy la bar chiyuvahu. The guy is allowed to muzzle his animal. You're the one who's not allowed to. So if you send the guy to muzzle your animal, you're going to be chayev. U'mechayev shochem aser.
The guy is not a bar chiyuva in this.
Right, the guy is not a bar chiyuva, and therefore the mishalech should be chayev. So what's the Gemara asking? Are you allowed to? Of course you're not allowed to. So maybe you'll say that Gemara is going according to the other man da'amar. There's another man da'amar that says that if the shliach has a choice, yes to do it, not to do it, then we say ein shliach l'dvar avera. In this case, the guy doesn't have to do it, and therefore perhaps you would say ein shliach l'dvar avera. V'afilu imtin tzolema dehaboy koy leidach man da'amar that's going according to Rav Sama. Da'amar shem parakama de'in chilek bein bar chiyuva le'in bar chiyuva ela bein ibay avid ibay loy avid ayin sham v'harosh pasakein mikol makom kasha. Here's the whopper. You ready for the whopper? Lemai de kaimelon da'amira legoy shvus. We hold amira la'akum is what? Not in this a shvus. What's a shvus? Isser drabanan be'in chilek al zeh b'chal talmid. No one argues on this. Typically, the Issa Dairaisahu, we should say that Amir La'akum is an Issa Dairaisa because after all, is a Goy Chayiv in Shabbos? No. So if a Goy is not Chayiv in Shabbos, if you send the Goy to be Mechalo Shabbos for you, it should be an Issa Dairaisa because Yesh Liach Ledvar Avera on something that the Goy is not Chayiv on.
But the Goy is not a Shliach in the sense of real Shlichos. If you say ain't shliach l'dvar avera, right?
You don't have to be an appointed shliach as long as you're doing something for me. Right? You're doing it. The guy is doing it for you, so he's a shliach. You don't need, hineni muchan mazumad limnois. You don't have to say any special thing. Someone who's doing something for you is a shliach, and we know that the guy is not obligated in Shabbos. So in such a case, we would say yesh shliach l'dvar avera. So it should be aser midairaisa to ask a guy to do malacha for you. Okay?
Please explain to me again. The guy doesn't have the status of a shliach, right?
No, 1 second. No, well, why?
We said before that a guy is not really halachic shliach.
But l'chumra, he could be. We have to add that in. L'chumra.
That's only according to Rashi.
So he's about to get to that. Tichi temer, if you're going to say the guy shani the labar shlichus, so if you're going to say, well, the guy can't be a shliach, then shlichus the guy. Mikamakan hapoiskim shapasko the yesh shlichas l'guy l'chumra. Those poskim will say there is shlichus with gal l'chumra. Kid the pligi Rashi Rabbeinu Tam, like Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam argue in Ezel Neshech in Kain Ein Kan Boi Klal, because the guy is not a bar chiyuva and he's a sheikh l'chumra. It's obvious. It's aser. Okay. So bottom line, Rabbi Say is, you ready for this question? Why is Amir La'akum a shvus? Of course, Amir La'akum is aser because the guy could be a shliach l'chumra according to Rashi, so Amir La'akam should be Aser. Amir La'akam, in other words, why do we have to say Amir La'akam is a shvus? Of course Amir La'akam is Aser because the guy is a shliach. And yesh shlichus la'akam l'chumra according to Rashi.
But according to everybody else, it's not an issue.
We're not asking, right? Correct.
Only to those who hold the chumrah.
So kasha on Rashi, why is Amir la'akam a shvus? Of course it's Aser al shlichus. Okay? Now Rabbi say...
So Rashi also establishes, in those cases where it's a chumrah, that he has a halachic status of a shliach.
No,
Very strange. That a goy should be.
That's Rashi's opinion. Rashi says that, yeah.
Isn't that shver? That whole concept is shver?
No.
Why? I mean, a goy is going to have the achrayas. I mean,
the Torah gives it to him. According to Rashi, the Torah allows a guy to be a shliach. That's
only
l'chumra. Now, Rabbi said, let me ask you the following question. This is what the whole shiur hinges on. And that is, when it comes to malacha on Shabbos, does the Torah want you to rest? Or does the Torah want the world to rest?
Well, it's you and your animals and everything that's in your...
So what does that mean? Does the Torah...
telling the whole world...
What does that mean? Does the Torah want you to rest? Or does the Torah want the world to rest? That means like this. Does the Torah want me not to do the malacha? Or does the Torah want the malacha not to be done?
I think it's the latter.
One second. Again, one more time. Is it the Torah wants that I shouldn't do the malacha? Or does the Torah want that the malacha should not be done?
According to Rashi, who says, well, chumrah shouldn't be...
Nothing to do with Rashi.
The Rashi would say that nobody should do any work.
No, nothing to do with Rashi.
I shouldn't do the malacha. The Torah says you don't do the malacha on Shabbos. Let's say the world shouldn't do the malacha. Shabbos, why is allowed to do the malacha on Shabbos?
Does the Torah want me to rest? Or does the Torah want that the malacha should not be done?
I shouldn't do the malacha.
No, I don't think so.
You should rest.
Are we supposed to do what the Kodesh Baruch Hu did?
Right.
He rested.
Okay, but the question is, when it comes to malacha, is it that the Torah doesn't want my body to do the malacha, or is it the Torah doesn't want the malacha to be done?
Your body.
My body shouldn't do the malacha.
No,
No,
halacha shouldn't be done.
Well, what's the...
Let us
Halacha
for
should
one more time. Let's say lighting a fire. No, let's not talk about that yet. Let's talk about writing. Does the Torah want me not to write, or does the Torah want writing not to be done?
No, because it says if you wrote 2 letters, it's okay. The third letter you're out.
No, but a full word. Does the Torah want me not to write a word, or does the Torah want that I should make sure that a full word is not written?
That means me. It has to be
Me, the Torah says it talks about you. It doesn't say about the world. It says you don't do a malacha on Shabbos. That's it.
Only Yidden were given this Isser. It's not in one of the Shiva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach that should observe Shabbos and not do Malacha on Shabbos.
There's no such thing.
Okay,
He
good.
has M'chayiv Misa.
So listen to this. Listen to this. The base mayor. Who's the base mayor? Rav Meir Posner. He was born in 1747. Rabbi Akiva writes about him. He says, Yedidi v'rav chavivi chiber shas v'tshuvas tzlois habayis. He says like this. He asks this question. Look at number 4. Look on the second line. Af hiksha sham l'shitas Rashi parkei zeo neshech. The Kimlan, according to Rashi in Ezeo Neshech, that we pass in yesh shlichus in a Yehudi l'chumra, that there is shlichus for a guy l'chumra. Ma'imi bayim yesh isra amir l'akam shvus. What's the question? If amir l'akam is a shvus b'chayvei lavin, typically mitam shlichus. We should say it's asa because of shlichus. D'chashav ka'isa ba'atzmai. It should be considered like you did it on your own. So then, well, but you say ain't shliach advar avera. But what do you mean? But according to the Man Amar, that if the shliach is eino bar chiyuva, there is shlichus. So listen to what the base mayor says. And this is, let me tell it to you outside, then we'll read it inside. What's the halacha if I say, this morning, I had such a hectic morning. If I had told you all the different things that were going on, right? I didn't have time to put on tefillin, I'm not saying, let's say I didn't have time to put on tefillin. So I say, Ram Yaakov, I'm busy this morning. Could you put on tefillin for me?
No.
Why not?
That's on your go.
It's on you.
Yeah, what do you mean? But sheach shel adam k'maisa.
No. That's your go. That you go fast.
What?
Nothing that you go fast.
So why is it that you could marry, you could do kedushin for me, but you can't put on tefillin for me?
There's nothing. The go doesn't have to be.
Because tefillin, my body has to have the tefillin. What do you mean? But you're my shliach. Shliach shel adam k'maisai. It's kimais. It's like, but it's still not you. But kedushin, the mitzvah is that I should be married, not that my body should do the act of marriage. It's that I should be married. It's the result. So you could go ahead and do it for me. The same way, listen very carefully, you can't put on tefillin for me. You can't be mechalel Shabbos for me. You know why? Because the same way my body has to wear tefillin, so too, the way to violate Shabbos is only if my body violates Shabbos. Right? The same way, you can't put on tefillin for me, because my body has to wear tefillin. You can't desecrate Shabbos for me, because the definition of violating Shabbos is my body desecrate Shabbos. Because the Torah doesn't care that the malacha shouldn't be done, the Torah cares that I don't do the malacha. Shabbos is imposed on the body. It's menuchas haguf, not menuchas olam.
The question, Isur Malacha on Shabbos, if I own a store, I'm not there on Shabbos, but it's open, my employees do what they have to do, I get all the profits, that's an Isur Shabbos. I didn't do a thing.
It's not it's a malacha, it might be Nisur Drabanan, and it might be highly problematic, but is that considered like you did malacha?
I didn't do a thing.
Says, look carefully what the base mayor says. V'hinei lefumriata. It would seem to me, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the top. V'hinei lefumriata. It would seem to me. Ratzisi Laimer. The Be'isr Shabbos, by the Isr Shabbos, lo shayach klal be'eni Yehudi tzad shlichus as varaver. You can't tell me, well, if the guy does the malacha for me, I'm going to get the avera. Why? The dafka ba'avera shahamaisa mitzad atzmai metuav lahamakam baruchu. If the act is by definition detestable to God, dumya desirus, oichasima, God doesn't want anybody making someone infertile, sterilizing someone. So if you have the guy do it for you, it's no better. Because there, it's inherently, it's not that Hashem doesn't want you to sterilize. Hashem doesn't want sterilization to be done. Hashem doesn't want animals to be muzzled. The dafka ba'averishim ha'maisa mitzad atzmai metuav la'amakam baruch dumya desirus oichasima. Even if a guy does it for you, Kedisa Taisus Parakalabasa, Delule Shemuchach Medas Legavai Makal Del Hedishari, Hayashayach Lesser Absirus Shel Yehudi Mikosha Ta'afti. So Shaper Shayach Shlich Lavera, the Avera might become Makam Nasasa. When it comes to sterilization, so you'll ask, so why are Goyim allowed to sterilize? There's a special drasha. But it's still an act that God detests. So therefore, if the guy does it for you, you are not ensuring that the act is not done, and therefore, if the guy is your shliach, you'll get the avera. Now, look carefully. Look carefully. Avo Shabbos the Isser Malacha Ach Laman Yanuach Yisrael V'Chol Hashalah. You know why God told us not to work on Shabbos? It's not that He doesn't want the malacha to be done. It's He wants your physical body to be at rest. It's not that fires being lit are inherently detestable to God on Shabbos. You know what the proof that they're not detestable? Because you collided before Shabbos. You could put the pot on the stove before Shabbos and it burns on Shabbos. That means God doesn't hate fires that are burning on Shabbos. God just says, I want your body to be at rest. Rabbi says the opposite. If a guy doesn't do malacha on Shabbos, he's chayiv misa. So how detestable is malacha to God? If a guy rests, God says he's chayiv misa. So what does it come out? It's not that Hashem doesn't want the malacha to be done. Hashem wants you not to do the malacha. So here, the answer is like this. The answer is Nimsa in Yehudi also b'shlichus Yisrael lo shachal yeshlich d'avera d'avera lo nasasa d'Yisrael nach. If I tell a guy turn on a light for me on Shabbos, is my body at rest? Yes. My body's at rest. so I'm not doing anything wrong. So therefore, you'll say, but Shlichus can't make you violate Shabbos.
So your dibur is not considered part of your body?
Shlichus, no. Shlichus dibur is not right. The same way you can't fulfill tefillin with Shlichus, you can't violate Shabbos with Shlichus. That's why the Chachamim have to come along and make a special Shvus on Amir La'akum. But had it not been for the Shvus on Amir La'akum wouldn't be Asar al Shlichus, because since the Malachas of Shabbos is Hashem wants your body to be at rest, if you tell the guy, go out for me and plant, plow, harvest my field, are you chayiv? Only because of the Shvus. But if it had not been for the Shvus, you wouldn't be chayiv. Why? Because your body is at rest. Just want to point out that the Chassam Sofer writes about this Kiddush that we just said, very high accolades. Okay, look at number 5. Chassam Sofer writes, Ach oimed le'enai, it stands before my eyes. Ma shehiksha hagoin pnei Yeshua, that which the Pnei Yeshua asked, but tshuva hanal, in the tshuva we mentioned. Why do you need a special shvus on Shabbos? You should say it's aser because yesh shlichus la'akam l'chumra. Now, Rabbi Glatstein, I just want to point out, Rashi Shita may be.
Yeah.
Hello?
Rashi Shita may be that yesh shlichus la'akam l'chumra midrabanan, not midairaisa, but we're still asking. So why do we need a special shvus of Amir La'akum? Of course it's also because of shlichus. Okay, says the Chassam Sofer v'yafeh kasav Beis Meir. The Beis Meir writes very nicely. Dila inyan Shabbos loy kasha midi kasha. This is not a question at all. Dila shayach shlichus b'may detaya b'guf evarei adam. Shlichus is not shayach on something that depends on a person's body. The same way Reuven can't put on tefillin for Shimon. Hachinami Torah Amra. So too the Torah says, Leman Yanuach v'yishbais evarei Yisrael. The Torah wants your body to be at rest. So if I appoint a guy to do work for me the whole Shabbos, even though he's doing it for me, is my body at rest? Yes. And therefore, is Amir La'akam going to be Aser because of Shlichos? No. The only reason it's Aser is because of the special Shvus. Okay? Fine. Says Chassam Sofer, Ve'emes Nachain Hadavar. This is very true.
Explain, so how does Rashi still hold only L'chumra? If we just accept this premise, right, that it's only Aser was a Shvus because it's Inyan of the Guf, and the guy, your Guf is at rest, so it is. Rashi come to say that l'chumra, it could be doraisa.
So it's like this. In a case where the Torah doesn't say, I don't want your body not to do it, where the Torah says this act is detestable, for example, sterilization, or muzzling an animal, where that's something, it's not that Hashem says, I don't want your body to muzzle an animal. Hashem says, I don't want animals to be muzzled when they're working the field. So if you tell a guy to do that for you, so you, in effect, are not making sure that animals are not muzzled when they're working. Or if you tell a guy to sterilize a yid, so then this is not something Hashem says, I don't want your body to sterilize.
Tell a guy to make a fire.
But if you tell a guy to make a fire on Shabbos, there's no Isser al Shlichas.
How does Rashi come?
Rashi is talking l'chumra by other Yisurim. For example, sterilization or muzzling.
So Rashi's not talking about l'chumra where it comes to
Shabbos.
The light on.
No, Rashi said a general.
Did he say that? Did he say that when he says l'chumra?
Rashi in Ezehu Neshech is not talking about Shabbos. He's giving a general principle that Goyim could be a shliach l'chumra. We wanted to apply it to Shabbos, and the chiddush of the Beis Meir is shlichus is not possible by Shabbos. The same way shlichus is not possible by tefillin. You can't have someone sit in the sukkah for you. It's a very simple idea. The same way you can't have someone do a mitzvah for you if your body has to do the mitzvah, you can't have someone desecrate Shabbos for you. It's not effective. Comes the stipler.
So if he told the yid to do the Aveira, the Ein Shliach L'Dvar Aveira, but your Guf didn't do anything, so why should you be Chayiv?
You're not. He'll be Chayiv because that for sure ain't Shliach L'Dvar Aveira. Correct. Come, who's the stipler, right? Kilas Yaakov, the father of Chaim Kanievsky, the brother-in-law of the Chazon Ish, yeah?
Second. Why would you be chayiv on Muslim if you tell a guy, if I hold yesh shliach ledvar avera, then the shliach is over, not him?
Yesh shliach ledvar avera means the mishaleach is chayiv.
No, ein shliach means the mishaleach is chayiv.
No, ein shliach ledvar avera means
the mishaleach is chayiv.
No. Ein shliach ledvar avera means this guy is not your shliach. He's doing it on his own, so he gets the avera and the mishaleach is off the hook. Yesh shliach ledvar means that he is your shliach and he could get you the avera. Comes along the stipler, the Kilas Yaakov. Let's go back to our first question. We asked, how could you light the Shabbos candles? Every moment the fire burns. It's like you're doing it. Same way if I shot an arrow and it continues to move for 100 years, everything it shoots down, it's like I'm doing it. Says the stipler, beautiful, that according to this base mayor, that when it comes to Shabbos, the Torah doesn't say, I don't want the malacha to be done. It's, I want you to rest and not do the malacha. So if I lit the Shabbos candles before Shabbos, and when Shabbos comes, in Lamdus, it's like I'm doing it. But I have a question. My body, is it at rest? It's at rest. Am I actively doing anything? No. But you say, but in Lamdus I'm doing something. You can't be Mechalo Shabbos in Lamdus. The same way if someone sends a shliach to be Mechalo Shabbos for you, but in Lamdus it's like I'm being Mechalo Shabbos because shliach shalom k'maisei. No. But if my body is at rest, it's not possible to desecrate the Shabbos. If I lit the Shabbos candles before Shabbos, even though they're actively burning on Shabbos, and even though halachically we view it as if I'm acting, but if my body is at rest, I am not desecrating the Shabbos. That's the answer to Mukhe Yosef's kasha. Really, Isho Mishum Chita. Really, your arrow, your fire is your arrow. And an arrow is something that in halacha we treat as if you're actively doing it. But you can't desecrate the Shabbos in Lamdus. Because Shabbos is the same way you can't put on tefillin for me. And you can't, so we said you can't desecrate Shabbos for me. The same way your shliach can't desecrate Shabbos for you, your Lamdish svara is not going to cause you to violate the Shabbos. Let's take a look at what the stipler says. He says like this. He says, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the bottom on number 8. He's answering the kasha and the Mukhe Yosef. By the way, it's kedai, it's a good thing to know if you're ever stuck somewhere, without gas, let's say, or, and you meet another yid, you could ask them, how are you allowed to light Shabbos candles? Say, what's the problem? But you ask them, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that Isha Mishum Chitzav, and you're actively, every moment the fire is burning, so you're lighting it, So, yeah, so he'll say like this, L'chara, Yesh Loimar, Api Mashakasav HaBeis Meir, you can answer based on the Beis Meir, B'soif Simen Hey, V'achsam Sofer Achaim Simen Pei Dalet, Degabe Shabbos, Lo Shayach, L'chayev, Amira L'nachri Midin Shlichus. On Shabbos, you can't say Amira L'nachri is Aser because of Shlichus. Afilu Inema, even if you're going to say like Rashi, Diyesh Shlichus L'nachri L'chumra, De'ikar Kapedas HaTorah, Gabe Shabbos, Hu Amaisa Shabagufai. Because the main concern of the Torah with Shabbos is that your body doesn't act. Davka. The HaTorah Hikpida Amenuchas Gufai Shoyisa. The Torah wants your body to be at rest. Davka. V'loy ala hamalacha, but not on the work. Shaloi tiyas, that it shouldn't be done. V'imkein hachanami. Afilu inema, even if you're going to say shekal mashanasa b'koychay v'yishay. Even if you're going to say that whatever was done with your kayach and with your fire, hu nachshav ma'isa shaloi, is considered your act. Mikal makam eino begeder oisam malach b'Shabbos. This is not considered like you did a malach on Shabbos. Kivan shegufay nach, since your body's at rest. So you say, yeah, your body's at rest, but don't you know the Lamdas of Rabbi Yochanan that it's like I'm doing it? Like is not good enough for Isser Shabbos. The same way your shliach is like you, but your shliach can't do malacha for you. If he does the malacha for you, it's not considered like you violate Shabbos. So too, it's like your arrow, but it's not your arrow. It's not your own. Kamagim eno begeder oisem malacha b'Shabbos kiven shegufay nach u'masa koicha v'isha loy adif mimaisa shluchay. Your body, your koyach, right, is not any worse than your shliach. That's a very nice point that he's making. Your koyach is not any worse than your shliach. Shu kamaisa ichiyadai. Your shliach is like you. He's like your hand. But there's no malacha. Kiven shegufay nach. The only problem is, Rabbi Sai, you do see from the Nemuke Yosef's question, not like the Chassam Sefer in the base mayor. If a Rishon, the Nemuke Yosef is asking, how are you allowed to light the Shabbos candles? What do you mean, how do you light? But your body's at rest. It seems to that you have a pretty strong proof. You see, it depends what yeshiva you learn in. And some yeshivas say, the Nemuke Yosef has a kasha. I have an answer with the base mayor. And other yeshivas, no. If the Nemuke Yosef didn't give that answer, so you have a Rishon who obviously holds Shabbos is what you were saying before, Menuchas Olam. That it's not that the Torah doesn't want you to do malacha, the Torah doesn't want the malacha to be done. So, they may both be true. But, we'll hold it over here. Okay? Stay tuned for the Chumash segment today. It is very interesting. Okay.
Go ahead.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.